Hey, welcome to this Instagram Live where we're going to be learning all about trigger finger, what causes it, how you know you might have trigger finger, and what you can do about it to decrease your trigger finger. Before we do that, in case we haven't met, let me just go ahead and introduce myself. Hi, I'm Corinne. I'm an occupational therapist and I specialize in helping those with chronic hand pain to decrease their pain and improve their function. Whether you want to know all the best gadgets to immediately do your favorite activities better and with less pain, or you want to understand your hand splint and support options, or maybe you just want to know more about exercises to improve your mobility and your strength, it is my job to help you do all of these things without having to spend a bunch of money and waste a bunch of time on things that just don't work. Before we really get started too, I did create a free resource for you. It's at the link in my bio right now, and I'm also going to post it in my stories after this, but it is called Bust Your Trigger Finger with 5 exercises. I'm going to be going over 3 exercises today, 2 of which are in this guide, and then there's an extra one for your trigger finger in this guide, and then there's 2 trigger thumb exercises as well, so make sure that you grab that. Again, the link in my bio or in my stories. So let's get started. I at first actually really wanted to talk about our hand and our forearm anatomy for all of this to make sense. So most people think that all of the muscles that control our hand are within our hand, and that would actually make a lot of sense, right? And while that's partly true, there are some muscles that control our hand, especially like in the more meaty areas of our hand. A lot of the muscles that control our hand motion, especially when we make a fist, are actually in our forearm. And then, so the muscles start down here, and all of our tendons go up through our wrist and all the way up to our fingertips. These tendons, where the muscles start down here and they go all the way up here, they help us to make a fist, and they're actually surrounded by a layer of connective tissue called the retinacular sheath. Now, just hang with me here for a minute because this is going to make sense as to why the heck I'm even talking about this. So this sheath that is surrounding the tendons of connective tissue is comprised of a pulley system in multiple aspects of our fingers. The pulleys, and I've actually highlighted several pulleys here. This would be the A1 pulley, and A2, A3, A4, and A5. These pulleys actually help to hold the tendon to the finger, and as we use our hand, the tendons actually glide underneath the pulleys. So this pulley system is like an integral part of us using our hands every single day. Also, like the maximal amount of the tendons, the force of the tendons when we're using our hands, they do get a lot of force like underneath them because we use our hands so much, and because they're like tight tethering pulleys that like literally hold the tendon to our bone, they get a lot of force going through them. And so again, as we are using our hands, as we're making a fist a lot, the tendons are gliding underneath these pulleys. This is the A1 pulley, this pink one. This is the pulley that is most commonly as a result with trigger fingers. So if you have inflammation at this pulley, which I'll show you on my hand, that would be like right here, this A1 pulley. Due to its location, this pulley is subjected to the max amount of stress that we have on our hands every single day during like heavy gripping activities. And so that is why trigger finger happens so commonly right here. So it earns its name from a popping or clicking sound, and trigger finger is actually caused by inflammation of that retinacular sheath that surrounds the tendons, which progressively then restricts the motion of your tendon underneath that pulley. So if you can just picture with me, if you're a sewer or if you're not, you can probably picture like stringing a thread through the eye of a needle. Similar to a string, after repeated threading through the eye of a needle, the flexor tendon swells and thickens, and then its fibers bunch up at the end that's closer to our hand. So if the tendon is coming all the way up here, and it's being pulled underneath that pulley, so if the tendon is the string and the pulley is the eye of the needle, that tendon actually swells. And then if you can picture like a string that's possibly too thick trying to go through the eye of a needle, all of the fibers like get bunched up, and you could actually even have like a palpable nodule right here sometimes with trigger finger, and that's just that connective tissue surrounding your tendon that is all bunched up right near that A1 pulley. So the connective tissue or the retinacular sheath on the outside of your tendon swells and frays, which then causes that lump underneath your skin, and it just can't fit smoothly under that pulley anymore. And so when it's not fitting smoothly under that pulley anymore, that is when it starts to catch or lock or pop or even stay down because it's just not functioning well, and the tendon's not gliding underneath that pulley anymore. So that's our little hand anatomy lesson before we really get started about trigger finger. As a disclaimer, it is important to go to a doctor to rule out any other cause for your symptoms. And then it's also actually important to understand like what grade of a trigger finger that you have. So there's, generally speaking, 4 different grades. The first grade, grade 1, is that you just might have a pain or a history of your finger popping or catching or making a weird sound like as you go to bend it up, but you can't really reproduce it on the spot. So you might tell your doctor, yeah, it happened the other day, but like as you try to make it happen in the clinic, nothing's happening. That would be grade 1. Grade 2 would be that it's catching and popping and it's easily reproducible. So you say, this is happening, doctor, look, and they watch you, but it pops, it locks for just a second, and you can bring it right back up with your own muscle strength. You don't have to, at this point, bend it up. That would be a grade 2. A grade 3 would be that it's locking. So when it triggers, when it pops, when it catches, when that tendon's not working underneath that pulley anymore, it locks down. And then you cannot actively extend it as you would in grade 1 or grade 2. So no matter how hard you try, you can't get that finger up on your own, and your other hand has to come and like unlock it. And that's typically also where a lot of like people experience more pain in this grade and up, just because of like how much swelling is present in underneath that pulley at that point. And then a grade 4 would just be that you have a contracture. So that just means that it would be stuck down and you can't even get it up, which is like pretty uncommon for it to get to that point, but it does happen. So what I'm about to tell you, like some of the recommendations that I have for you tonight and some of the exercises that I've put together for you, typically grades 1 and 2 respond really well to these conservative measures. Grade 3, where it's catching and then you have to passively extend it, it can also respond well. And it just depends on the person. Grade 4, if you're stuck down here, like you'll probably need surgery. But regardless of where you are, it's still important to try these conservative measures before surgery, because surgery is a big undertaking. So usually like the first line of defense with trigger finger is to try to stop the triggering, the popping, the catching, the locking, that feeling, that sound. Try to stop it from happening for 4 to 6 weeks, which sounds like a long time, but that actually allows the tendon to heal during this time and to like kind of smooth out that layer of connective tissue so that everything, like all the inflammation, calms down. So in order to keep it from locking, typically you're going to need a splint. Now, there's a lot of different ways to splint your finger if you have trigger finger. I'll show you what I have first. It's called the Oval 8 splint. So Amazon sells like a pack of these, like all of the sizes. There's like, I can't remember, like maybe 10 different sizes. And they sell like all of them together for like $40. And usually I recommend that you start with this just because it's like so much, for the bang for your buck, it's actually like a really good deal, and your finger swelling often fluctuates throughout the day or based off of your trigger finger, so it's nice to have the different sizes to like upgrade or downgrade. So for this one, you would want to make sure that you're putting it on with the circle around this way. So you would not want to be putting it on with the circle facing like the back of your hand. You would want to make sure that it's facing the palm of your hand, because then it's going to keep your finger from being able to fully bend. This is like a less traditional form of a splint for trigger finger. Oftentimes, and I don't have one to show you, but I cut out a little piece of paper to sort of show you like what a splint pattern is for trigger finger. So usually you can buy these over the counter, not this obviously, but a traditional anti-trigger finger splint over the counter, and it will probably look something like this, where it wraps around, like maybe has a Velcro strap behind your finger, but wraps around and basically keeps your finger up straight at this point. So you would still be able to like bend up here, but it's keeping it from going into that full like flexion, like the bending here, and so therefore it's keeping it from locking or catching. So those are like sort of two, I guess, splint design options that you could look at, would be keeping your finger still at the base right here, or keeping it still at that joint with like an oval 8 splint. Another option that you could try before you even go to purchase something is to try wrapping a Band-Aid. And this is one of my kids' Band-Aids. Try wrapping a Band-Aid around that joint where your oval 8 would be supporting it. Because some people, especially like in the grade 1 or grade 2, some people, this is all that they need. And you can see if it's on well, and if it's not like the itty bittiest Band-Aid from your kid. But if you had like a nice wide Band-Aid, it would actually keep you from fully bending at that joint, which might be enough to keep you from locking. But whatever splint you get, the design doesn't really matter as long as it's a design that you feel that you could actually wear and keep yourself like consistent with, and keep it from locking or triggering for 4 to 6 weeks. So again, you want to avoid that full fist or bringing your finger that is triggering down all the way into your palm. You want to avoid that for 4 to 6 weeks, because again, every time it pops, locks, catches, snaps, that contributes further to your inflammation, and it might turn more into like a chronic condition. So it really needs that 4 to 6 weeks to heal. I also wanted to show you exercises, and with all of these, make sure that there's no noises, locking, popping, anything. And if you do experience that, then it just might not be the right exercise for you. So the first one is the hook fist. So trying to keep these knuckles up straight. And if you have the splint that supports that finger like in that way, then that would be a great way to block that motion, right? It would keep you from going into the full fist. If you want to try it without your splint, or if you have the oval 8 kind or a Band-Aid, you would take it off and just go through. You would start with about 5 of these and just try to go through 5 nice slow repetitions. Again, if there's any locking, popping, snapping, you're going to want to stop. If you're having a hard time keeping your hand from closing, like if it's just so hard and you just want to like make a full fist, and you don't have the kind of splint that supports your finger there, you could also try weaving a pencil. So I'm in this demonstration, it's my ring finger. That's a common one to have trigger finger in, or your middle finger is also a common one. So you could try weaving a pencil underneath it. So it's basically forcing it to stay up, and it's not letting your finger lock all the way down. So start with 5 nice slow reps, a couple times a day, and then you could progress to 10 multiple times a day to really help those tendons to start to glide smoothly, and to practice gliding underneath your pulleys, your annular pulleys. The next exercise, and one that facilitates sort of a different tendon glide, would be the tabletop. So you're going to be up here, and then in this case you actually are bending at this part right here, but you're keeping the rest of your fingers straight. So in this exercise, if you have any locking or popping during that, you're going to want to stop it, do about 5 slow reps, a couple times a day. You can progress to 10. And if you're having a hard time keeping your fingers straight during that, if you have this kind of splint and you want to just keep it on while you do it, that would be an easy one that way you literally can't bring your finger all the way into your palm, and it probably won't trigger with that one. So both of those two are in the Bust Your Trigger Finger with 5 exercises guide that I've given you in the link in my bio or in my stories afterwards. So those two. This third one is not in that guide, but I'm going to show you here. That guide does have an extra one that I'm not covering tonight too, so make sure you grab it. And then it does have the 2 trigger thumb ones, which I don't quite have time for tonight. But if you have trigger thumb, definitely go grab it. This last one that I'm going to show you tonight is a fist place and hold. So to make sure that this joint or these finger joints don't get so stiff, because whenever you do immobilize something for 4 to 6 weeks, like, you will get stiff. It is important to try to move your fingers and to try to keep them nice and mobile. That way, when you're done with your immobilization, you're not trying to rehab a very stiff finger. So a place and hold would be, first you have to make sure your hand is totally relaxed. And I don't want any of your muscles trying to help this happen. All of these muscles need to be totally relaxed. So if you don't think you can do that, this one probably isn't for you. With this hand relaxed, with the hand that has a trigger finger completely relaxed, you're going to take your other hand, your other healthy hand, and slowly bring those fingers down into a fist. And again, all of our muscles are relaxed on the hand that triggers. And then you're going to try to let go. And as you let go, those muscles can activate. Okay, but we're not going to be moving our triggering hand. We're just going to try to hold it there. So our muscles are activating to hold it down, but we didn't do this to bring it down. We had our hand nice and relaxed. We brought it down with our other hand, and then our muscles on this hand and forearm don't activate till after our good hand goes away. Okay, and then once you hold that for 5 to 10 seconds, then you can relax all these muscles again and let this hand slowly and carefully bring your fingers up. And you could start with 5 of those. With that one, if there's any triggering or catching, like the first time that you try it, that's just not the right one for you, and that's okay. Like, if you do the other ones, your finger will be okay without that one. But that is a good one to try. And if you can do it without locking, then definitely start with 5 reps, 5 to 10 second holds. You can progress up to 10 reps after that. So again, these exercises keep your fingers nice and loose and mobile. And so they can also, moving your hand can help to pump the swelling or that inflammation from your connective tissue and from that retinacular sheath. It can help to pump the inflammation out of your hand, especially if you're holding your hand up like above your heart, like this, as you do those exercises. So another aspect to managing trigger finger, especially if you've given it like a good 4 to 6 weeks and you're still locking or popping, and there's no way that you can wear a splint, for the rest of your life because of like your chronic trigger finger that maybe goes away and comes back. You could also look to changing the way that you're doing certain activities. And this is also true if you have another condition like rheumatoid arthritis. It's pretty common with RA to have trigger finger. So if you have rheumatoid arthritis, or if your trigger finger is not going away after like the 4 to 6 weeks, you've given it a good try with that splint, it's still there, try modifying and looking at the activities that you're doing throughout the day and trying to keep your hand from like full flexion, full like tight gripping, like as much as humanly possible. Now, you can't always take it out, and I'm not saying to completely remove that like as a part of your life, but if you struggle with chronic trigger finger or arthritis, then trying to modify like some of your activities, such as like using a food chopper rather than gripping tightly with a knife and chopping, because that could cause your finger to like lock down. That might be a good option. Or like widening the grip on your toothbrush. There are a lot of cool like on the market ways to like modify thin utensils. So this is like part of a pack of foam tubing from Amazon, and you can see that there are like varying widths as well as like hole sizes. So the yellow one might be good to like fit like a, I don't know, like a toothbrush or a pencil like this. Whereas the red one might be better for like a brush or a comb handle or something like that. And if you've done all the things, if you've splinted for 4 to 6 weeks and you've practiced your gliding exercises, then you might consider a corticosteroid shot. There's actually some good evidence out there that a steroid shot combined with these conservative measures can also really help to rehab that trigger finger. Your doctor also might bring up surgery, and while that is a good option for some, as with all surgeries, just make sure that you've tried these conservative measures first before going through with a surgery. That's all that I have for you tonight. Thank you for joining me. Make sure that you grab that Bust Your Trigger Finger guide. It's got the hook fist exercise, the tabletop exercise, and one additional exercise for trigger finger that I didn't go over tonight. And then it also has 2 exercises for trigger thumb. So make sure you grab that, and I hope that you all have a lovely weekend. That's it. Thanks so much for watching, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you found this video helpful so that you can see more videos just like this one.